Hello designers and welcome back to the Fusion 360 Explained by a Kid course. Today's video is a part 2 of last video, so if you haven't seen that, please go check it out and then come back to this video. Firstly, let's refresh our memories on what we learned last video. We saw all the Create tab under Tools and the Modify tab. So in today's video, we'll take a look at the constraints and how to insert a canvas. Let's get right into it. First, we need to understand what constraints are. These are basically rules that Fusion 360 gives to certain objects on the sketch. So let's start seeing them one by one. The first one is the horizontal vertical line. For this one, we need some lines as an example. So let's say you have this line and you also have this line. The horizontal vertical constraint will make both of them either a vertical line or a horizontal line, making them in a 90-degree angle. So if we choose it and then click the line we want to constrain, we see that in this case, the line is now a vertical line and a little icon appears. However, not the same will happen with this one. In this case, it will become a horizontal line because it's the closest angle. To eliminate this constraint, you can just click the icon and hit backspace. This will delete the constraint, allowing the line to not be vertical. Now, hit escape to stop selecting the horizontal vertical constraint, and now choose the coincident constraint. This one makes 2 points meet each other. So let's say we want this line to be here. We basically make this point be coincident to this other point, and Fusion 360 will bring the line right there. This one can become really useful, as now if we move this, you can see how both lines are still in the same place. Now let's continue with the following one, the tangent constraint. For this one, I will use a circle as an example. So I'll draw a circle and then another line right here. The tangent constraint basically makes two shapes become tangent with each other. So if we select this circle and this line, as you can see, now the circle, if we try to move it up and down, it won't move as it is tangent to this line. It may change sizes, but he will never abandon this line. See? Perfect. Now let's continue with the equal constraint. But first, let's clear up the space. So the equal constraint basically makes two circles, lines, squares, whatever you want to, become equal in size. So let's say we have this line and this line. If we go to the equal constraint and choose both of these lines, you can see how now they become exactly the same in length. So if we change one length, let's say this line will become 200 millimeters, both of them change. It's kind of similar to the mirror tool we saw on last episode. Now let's continue with the parallel constraint. Now the parallel constraint, as the name says, makes two shapes become parallel to each other. For example, these two lines. If you choose the parallel constraint and select both of them, now they will become parallel to each other. Now, a similar thing happens with the perpendicular constraint. Basically, it makes two shapes become perpendicular to each other. So in this case, if we have this line, we can choose the perpendicular constraint and make both of them perpendicular to each other. Now, the next constraint is the fix and fix constraint. It basically locks the location of a certain object. Meaning, if we choose, for example, this line, now as you guys can see, it becomes green, meaning it is fixed. So now we cannot move it anywhere, no matter what we do. We can unfix it by choosing again the constraint and selecting it. Then we have the midpoint constraint. The midpoint constraint basically makes a shape go in the middle of another shape. So let's say we have a rectangle, for example, and then we want a line to be in the middle. Now we could just go down the line until we reach the triangle, as that is the center of the line. But we can also make the line whatever we want to, and then choose the midpoint constraint, select this line, and then the line we want the line to be in the middle of. For example, this one. Now, as you guys can see, now the line is exactly in the middle of the other line, both vertically and horizontally. Then we also have the concentric constraint. But first, let's clear again the space. To use the concentric constraint, we need two circles. So let's say we have this one and this one. What it does is that it basically makes both of them have the same middle point. So now if we choose them, you'll see how they both have the same middle point right here. Next up is the collinear constraint. This one basically makes two objects be in the same line. So let's say we have a rectangle and a line down here. If we choose the collinear constraint and grab these edges, we can make the square be in the same line as this line. So now that we move it, it cannot go up or down. Let's select the square to move it. Oops. There. See? It cannot go up. It's very similar to the tangent constraint. Next up, we have the symmetry constraint. This one works similarly to the mirror. Basically, it needs an axis. So let's say we want to create this as an axis and one shape. No, sorry, two shapes. So this one and this one. Now, if we choose the symmetry constraint and choose these two objects first and then the axis, we can see how now the distance from here to here and from here to here is the same and the size is the same. So now if we change one, let's say we want now a 200 millimeters, both change. If we separate it more from the line, I don't know, say 150, they both do. See? Finally, we have the curvature constraint. But now again, let's clear up the space. The curvature constraint basically makes a smooth curvature into a spline. So let's say we have this shape sorry, this, and then this line. But right here we have a spline that goes like this. We can see how it doesn't make a smooth entry. So if we choose the curvature constraint, we can click this and then this and see how the entry is now smooth. We can do the same down here. Choose this line and then this line, and now it has a smooth entry. See? Well, that's all for constraints. Now let's move up to what inserting a canvas is. Basically, it helps you shape things easily. Let's say we want to do a beer bottle. So we can go to Google and download an image of a beer bottle. I have already done that. Then we can go to insert a canvas and search for the photo in the computer. Go down here, insert from my computer. Then I already have it here, beer bottle. We choose it and then we click on open and we choose a side, in this case this one. Now we have right here the photo. You can make it bigger by grabbing it from the corner. See? What's good about this is that now we can grab, I don't know, the spline option. Hold up, let's create a sketch. And use the bottle as an example. Something like this. See? Now we can adjust the spline. So here we have to change the curve. And also here. And lastly over here. This is just very quick, so it won't be that exact. But basically, thanks to the canvas, we can create a very similar shape to a bottle without needing to be looking at a photo, then sketching, looking at the photo and sketching. We can just sketch over a certain photo. And well, that's all for today, designers. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope I will see you in the next video. Goodbye, designers!